I'm Debbie Fields of Great American Desserts, and today we're going to be talking all about the basics of baking. If you would like to make a delicious and perfect dessert each and every time, the very first thing that you need to do is start with some very basic equipment. Now, this does not mean that you need to go out and spend a lot of money. Instead, there are very inexpensive items that are easy to find. The most important thing is that you should always buy quality items that will last. Now, you probably have a lot of these things right now in your very own kitchen. As an example, here is a set of nesting bowls. And what I love about these is that they're easy to store in my cupboard. And they come in different sizes so that depending on your recipe, you can just simply use the size that you need. And then these custard cups are great because they're easy if you have a microwave to use them as a microwavable dish. And they're great for puddings, soufflés, and of course custard. And then every kitchen needs a cookie sheet, and so we have a cookie sheet as well as a baking pan, and there is a difference between the two. And if you want to make a pie, you can have a whole variety of pie plates and pans in different colors, from light to dark, even glass. And when you get ready to make your pastry, you're going to need to roll it out. So you'll need to have a rolling pin and pie weights, crimpers, and a pastry cutter. And for blending, you need a good food processor, a hand mixer, a wire whisk, spatulas for scraping, and for cooling, some simple wire racks. They come in different shapes and sizes, some parchment paper for transferring, and last but not least, in my kitchen, I think it's a very important kitchen tool, and that is an ice cream scoop. You're thinking, why an ice cream scoop? Well, not only for scooping out ice cream do I use it for, but I use it to scoop out cookie dough. That way I have a consistent size every time I make cookies, and I get a perfect cookie every time. Now, the thing you want to always remember, and this is true for any dessert cook, is that you need to always have excellent measuring equipment. Many entree and side dishes allow you to actually experiment with a recipe, but because baking is a science, it's really important to measure accurately. And it's also a great idea to measure out everything in advance. That way you're going to be certain that you won't leave out any of your ingredients. This is also a great time to involve your family in the baking process. I have 5 daughters, and getting them involved in baking is not only fun, but it's also rewarding, because measuring is a wonderful way to teach them about fractions and addition, and they'll get a wonderful reward at the end. They'll get to eat the dessert. Now, for measuring cups, there really is a difference between liquid and dry. Now, this is a liquid measure, and liquid measuring cups are designed for liquids to dip slightly in the middle of the cup. Now, the markings on the side are adjusted for this. Now, when liquid cups are used for dry ingredients, it can be off as much as 1/4 of a cup, and that's pretty serious, especially since baking is a science. Now, this particular measuring cup is also able to be used for hot liquids. Now, to measure your liquids, what you want to do is you don't want to pick it up and try to steady it with your arm. Instead, just leave it on a nice level surface. At that point, you're going to take your liquid and just pour it directly into your liquid measure. And you don't want to eyeball it from here. Instead, you want to get down and you want to check the level and the measurement to verify accuracy. Now, for dry measuring cups, now these are designed to measure that specific amount. This is what a dry measure looks like. Now, they are a must for accurate measuring. Examples are, you want to measure your flour, sugar, and other dry ingredients using these. Now, they can also be used for sour cream, butter, and yogurt. Now, I always prefer to use the stainless steel cups because you know what? They're nice and sturdy. And I love the fact that they're nested because they're great for easy storage. Now, you want to get the ones with long handles, and you also want to verify that they have the measurements on like 1/8, 1/4, 1/3, and 1/2. They also come in 1 and 2 cup sizes. Now, when it comes to measuring flour, here's a special tip. First of all, flour doesn't always need to be sifted. It depends on the recipe. But when you do measure out flour, first of all, take a fork and just run it through the flour. Then take your dry measure, and this is important. You want to scoop it into your flour, and using the edge of the knife, and you want the level edge, not this side. You just want to scrape the excess. That way you have an accurate measure. Now, for brown sugar, all recipes, usually when it calls for brown sugar, it means packed. So that means you take your dry and you come over here and just scoop the sugar in it. Now, you want to press and pack your sugar in so that it's nice and tight. And then once it's nice and firmly packed, just scrape off the excess and you're ready then to use it in your recipe. Now when it comes to measuring spoons, I like to use the metal ones. And the reason for that is that the metal ones I think are sturdier, and that plastic, if you have plastic, it tends to soak up fats and odors which could contaminate your ingredients. Now our recipe today calls for setting our oven temperature at 350 degrees because we're going to be making a wonderful pound cake. Now when it comes to ovens, you know, ovens can just vary in temperatures, and as a result I recommend the purchase of inexpensive oven thermometers. This is what's in front of me here, and that way you can put it in your oven, test the temperature for accuracy, and adjust your dial accordingly. Now let's go ahead and prepare a 10-inch 3-quart bundt pan. I've gone ahead and taken 1 tablespoon of butter and I've melted that and spread that inside my bundt pan. Then you'll need 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Sprinkle that in. You're going to coat your bundt pan with the sugar. We're doing this so that it will make for easy release of our pound cake from the pan, and it will also give our pound cake a wonderful sparkle. Once that's done, just set it aside. Now, did you know that a bundt pan really is a promotional item that took off? It really is just a simple tube pan. Now, you can also use a straight-sided tube pan like this. Now, this works very well. Now, the tube helps conduct the heat and lets the cake bake evenly. Now, this is traditionally used as an angel food cake pan. Why? It has a bottom that is removable and legs, especially when you're making an angel food cake pan. These legs actually allow you to invert it and allow it to cool. Now, if you love to make angel food cake on a regular basis, my recommendation is that you have a angel food cake pan exclusively for that. Because if you use a tube pan for many uses, it actually begins to have oil coats the sides. And you want, with angel food cake, you want it to rise. And the best thing to do is just leave it exclusively for angel food cake making. Now, other pans that are essential in the kitchen, a springform pan. I love this for cheesecakes. Now, I love it for cheesecakes because it has this wonderful clamp on the side that you can use to open and close. Now, especially when you're making a cheesecake and you have this lovely crust, you can easily open it and remove it from the bottom, and that way you can keep things intact, but essential for cheesecake making. Now, another one is just a simple cake pan. Anytime you want to make a layer cake, these come in very handy. Also, when those bananas are starting to get ripe and it's time to make some banana nut bread, this is a loaf pan. These are great to have in the kitchen anytime. And I love to use this for brownie making. You can either get them in sizes 8 by 8, 9 by 9, but these are wonderful dishes for brownie making. And then a 9 by 13, what I call a sheet. This is used for sheet cakes. It's a baking dish, and it's also wonderful anytime you want to make a cobbler. Oh, they're just terrific to have in your kitchen and an essential item. Now we're going to get ready to whisk. In a bowl, we're going to use 3 cups of all-purpose flour. And with that, I'm going to be adding half a teaspoon of baking soda, as well as a half a teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to whisk these ingredients all together. Now, you know, whisks are an important tool to thoroughly mix your ingredients. They come in different shapes and sizes, and they all have different purposes. Now, for any size, you should always choose a sturdy wire whisk that's stainless steel, and also make sure that you do not have any rust on yours. Now, you also want to get ones that have strong handles. That way, it makes it easy to whisk, and it keeps a balance as you're whisking. Now, first of all, let me show you what a balloon whisk looks like. A balloon whisk has many flexible wires, as you can see here, usually at least 10, and is very rounded. It's used to beat egg whites and is designed to incorporate as much air as possible into the ingredients. Now, here is a pastry sauce whisk, which usually has about 8 flexible wires and is more narrow. Now, this is designed to mix ingredients without beating too much air into it. It's perfect for sauces and gravies to keep them lump-free. Also good whenever you're like making a pastry cream. And then here is a flat whisk. This has 6 to 8 heavy wire loops, and it lays flat. Now, it's designed to rest on the bottom of a pan so it can thicken portions of sauces and gravies and keep them lump-free. And just continue to, mix and mix and mix and whisk. Now here, this, do you know what this is? This is a bread whisk or a dough whisk. This is essential whenever you're using yeast And what it does is it does not incorporate air into your bread dough or yeast dough, and it incorporates and blends your ingredients thoroughly. And here we have a little baby whisk. This is great anytime you have to whisk a small amount of ingredients together like cornstarch and water. Just whisk, 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 and set it aside. Now let's continue with our pound cake. What we're going to do is we're going to take 2 sticks of softened unsalted butter, which is what I have in front of me, and I'm going to begin blending the butter. And the reason why it's important to have butter at room temperature is because it will allow us to incorporate all of our ingredients and blend more effectively. Then I'm going to add 2 cups of granulated sugar, and I'm going to be blending on high for approximately 4 to 5 minutes until I create a nice fluffy texture. You want it to be light and pale in color and fluffy. Using your spatula, this is always important. You want to scrape everything into the center of your bowl, and you will blend, blend, blend. And talking about the bowl, you know, the one thing that keeps this bowl from sliding all over my counter is just getting a damp towel. Moisten that towel, place your bowl on it, and that way you can use your hands and add ingredients. Now we're going to add our extracts. Now remember, at home, you will get this mixture to the point where it's light and fluffy, 4 to 5 minutes. Now we're going to use 2 teaspoons of pure lemon extract, adding your lemon into the sugar and the butter. And then we're going to come back and add 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract and blending these ingredients together. Now we're going to add 4 egg yolks. Now, you want your egg yolks to be at room temperature. Once again, that will allow you to increase the volume of your cake and allow your ingredients to blend. Add 1 egg at a time. And if in the event that more than 1 yolk falls out, never worry. Just continue to blend and mix, and you're going to count to about 20 between each addition of the egg yolk. And also, a recipe, this is important to note, every time you look at a recipe, if it doesn't define the exact egg that you need, in other words, if it says small egg, then get small eggs. But if it just says eggs, it generally means large eggs, and so that's what we're using today. So add the remaining amount of your egg yolks, beating well after each addition, 20 seconds. And then after all your egg yolks are in, you're going to scrape everything to the side and in, and just blend, blend, blend. Now, here's something that's really important. If you're going to be using butter today, or shortening for that matter, and this is true for any solid, one way to know what the quantity, what amount you need or what amount you have is to use water to displace the quantity that you're trying to measure. What we're going to do, as an example, is to take a solid and put it in a liquid measuring cup. And once you can then determine the amount of water that that solid displaces, then you know exactly how much you have. Now, it's, of course, much easier. Instead of doing that, it's much easier to just go out and buy a stick of butter. And this is what I do, because this way, 1 stick of butter is equal to 1/4 pound or 1/2 cup. Or it also will tell you how many tablespoons you need, and it's just easier to slice. But you can use this anytime you're using a solid. Whether it's peanut butter and you need a cup, just place it inside the water, and whatever it displaces, it tells you the quantity that you have. Okay, now I'm going to take the following. I'm going to take 1/2 cup of buttermilk and 1/3 cup of sour cream. I'm going to add these 2 ingredients together, and this adds for a wonderful texture of your pound cake, and also it gives it, it does not make your pound cake too sweet. It kind of gives it a nice balancing flavor. I'm going to whisk these ingredients together, and whenever you're making cakes, generally you'll see that they will ask you to start with your flour and end with your flour. We're going to alternate our dry with our liquid. So taking 1/3 of, and it doesn't have to be precise, just take 1/3 of the dry ingredients and begin to blend the dry into the sugar and the butter and the eggs and the extracts, scraping everything towards the center. Once you no longer see any flour, then you're going to come back and add the sour cream and buttermilk mixture. And you're going to add exactly half of that amount. And then scraping the sides and bringing all of the ingredients towards the center, coming back and then getting half of the remaining amount of your flour, just placing that directly inside, and then continuing to blend and incorporating the dry into your batter. Working with this and scraping and increasing your speed. If your mixer ever starts to sound like it's working too hard, then just increase the speed. That'll protect your motor. And then ending with the remaining amount of your liquid, we're going to then scrape it all towards the center. And as always, you always end on dry. So liquid and then dry. Place that inside. Okay. Once this is thoroughly incorporated and no signs of flour remain, then we're ready to move on to our next step. Now, I've discovered that this seems to be one area, especially when I'm working with my children and they're making cookies in the kitchen. I always encourage them, take the time to always scrape the sides of the bowl and make sure that the flour hasn't fallen to the bottom. Because otherwise, what happens when they make cookies is that they'll have some cookies that turn out like golf balls and others that look like pancakes. So this is the time when you want to spend incorporating all your ingredients. Now we're going to take 1 cup of toasted almonds, which is what I have here. I've gone ahead and I've chopped them. Now, why toasted almonds? First of all, it gives a wonderful texture to our pound cake today, and also toasting them brings out their flavor. It gives it a nice toasted, buttery flavor. So adding that, we want to stir in our almonds into our batter. Once that's done, we'll get ready to take 4 egg whites. Now, the best way to work with your egg whites to get the best volume is to always make sure that your egg whites are at room temperature. Now, I'm going to start whipping them up. And here's some other points. In terms of selecting the bowls that you use, the first choice would be copper. The second would be stainless steel. The third would be glass. And the one bowl you never want to use whenever you're beating egg whites to form stiff peaks is stay away from plastic, because the plastic has a tendency to keep oil residue on its sides, and because the egg whites have to climb up the side, it makes it very difficult. So use glass, stainless steel, or copper. Now, I've gone ahead and beaten my egg whites, and I have formed firm, stiff peaks. We're going to take this and we're going to fold those egg whites directly into the batter. Now, this is going to add texture and volume, and it's a wonderful mouthfeel. Now, when you're folding, you're just coming around and you're doing exactly that. You're just lifting and folding, and you're going to be placing this into your bundt pan, remembering that it's been prepared and that your oven temperature is 350 degrees. You will continue to blend these ingredients together until you see no more white streaks. And at home, when you have more time, and you'll just make sure that it's all thoroughly incorporated and blended. But you will not see any more of the egg whites once it's blended thoroughly and folded gently. You don't want to overbeat it at this stage because you want a tender cake and you want to keep the air. Now, once it's thoroughly blended, you'll take your batter and you're going to place it into your prepared bundt pan. And you want to always bake your cakes in the center rack of your oven. Oh, and it has the most wonderful smell with the lemon extract. Make sure you put all of your batter in. Now, here's the next piece that's important, is you want to make sure you spread it so that it's level. So take your spatula and just scoop it around until you have formed a nice, level layer of the batter. And you'll be placing it, as I mentioned earlier, in a 350-degree oven. You'll be baking for 50 to 55 minutes. And it'll go in the oven. You'll put it in the center. You'll know when it's done when a toothpick comes out clean, once inserted, and then you'll take it out of the oven. You will keep it in its bundt pan, and you will allow it to cool on a wire rack. At that point, you will then take the cake and invert it and allow it to sit on a wire rack so that it has a chance to come and cool. And this is what it will look like. This pound cake is so easy to make, and it's so delicious. It's moist, it's dense, it's rich, it's buttery, and I've topped it off with a caramel icing, but you could use even powdered sugar. It'll still taste great. Now, just ahead, more dessert basics, including how to make a perfect pastry crust, choosing a food processor, and using a rolling pin. Right now, I want you to do something special. I want you to become part of this station. You've probably been told before that public television needs your support. Well, it's true. My program and every other program you see on this station is made possible by your friends and your neighbors. Now it's your turn. This community made this station what it is today. Call now with your pledge of financial support, and thank you so much.